Welcome to our way too early 2021 fantasy football mock draft. We'll go through the first two rounds of a 12-team half PPR draft, and it's all coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants. Eric, here we are. We're sitting in February. We're going to do this draft. So a couple of caveats for our viewers, right? A little bit early. I think it's nice because we have this fresh in our minds, but some of the downside is that we don't know for sure what things are going to look like come draft time, right? We might have we're going to definitely have some different coaches. There may be some players in different situations and the roles could change accordingly. So it's a little bit early for that reason, but it's always nice to have some of the fresh information in our mind from 2020.
Yeah, Swift already dropped out of my top 24 because he now has Jared Goff throwing to him rather than Matthew Stafford. But I don't want to give anything else away. Michael, let's get into it. It's mano a mano. We are facing each other. You're going to make a pick, then I'm going to make a pick, and then we'll see at the end who the viewers might think has the better overall pick.
Eric, I'd like to welcome our special guest today. Elder Coleman Wiley, my son, is joining us from Fort Benton, Montana on his mission. He just has a minute during his preparation day today. Welcome, Coleman.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
And Coleman, you know a little bit about football. Varsity quarterback on your high school team.
Yeah, I guess I know a thing or two about it.
All right, so we're going to do this draft, Michael. We got to figure out first who's going to draft first. Now, I can flip a coin around here if I can find one.
No, I got a really impartial way for this to go. How about we just have Coleman put number 1 or 2 behind his back. You pick a number, and if you get it right, you get to go first. Otherwise, I get to go first.
All right, Coleman, you got it?
Yep, got it.
To pick the number 1 pick, I'll say 1.
All right. I think it was a 2.
All right, we got the first pick. Way to go. And Coleman, since we got the first pick, I'm going to hand it over to you. But Eric, you have something to say? Is something wrong?
No, I want to go instant replay on that. I thought I saw only one, but all right, go on. Take the number 1 pick. I don't need the number 1 pick.
All right.
Coleman, if you had the number 1 pick, who should we take?
To me, it's pretty clear that you go with Christian McCaffrey. The only reason people say not to go for him was because he was out most of last year with an injury. But honestly, when he was in, he was the most productive running back on the board, and he just had a stellar season. And before then, he didn't have any injuries. So I think you got to go with Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I assume you approve, Michael.
Definitely support that. And just one comment there. They held him out. Clearly, he probably could have come back, but they were smart. Let's preserve this guy for next year's fantasy season.
I think Christian McCaffrey's the obvious number 1 pick. I think there's an obvious number 2 pick. And I hope you guys can smell what I'm cooking. It's Dalvin Cook. He was second in the NFL in fantasy scoring last week, only behind your guys, Christian McCaffrey. And he simply checks all the boxes. Bell cow back, goal line, gets involved in the passing game. And you know what? He had a relatively healthy year, so that had been the thing that dogged him in the past. My first pick, which is the 2nd overall pick, Dalvin Cook.
Wow, a little earlier than I would have gone with that, but I like it. I like it.
Oh, I'm really interested. So you're going to pick the guy who would have been your 2nd pick?
That's right. So you've left me in great shape because I'm going with the guy who broke the record for touchdowns in a game, somebody who is not going to have to deal with the dual back system. I know we don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but for me, it's Alvin Kamara is my next pick.
Inconceivable. You're way off. I say you're way off this time, son.
Okay, I'm going to disagree in the sense that as we stand here in February, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. If the quarterback's Drew Brees, I don't have a problem with this pick at all at the 3rd pick. But what if it's Jameis Winston who doesn't do as many dump off passes, or even worse, what if it's Taysom Hill?
And having Michael Thomas back could potentially negative impact.
Okay, if Taysom Hill is the quarterback, I do not think Alvin Kamara is a top 7 pick. There we go. All right. So, okay. So I really thought this was the guy you were going to pick. This is a half PPR. He's the 2-time rushing champion, 500 more yards than any other NFL player on the ground. Derrick Henry. You know, Derrick Henry has 4 games against Houston and Jacksonville this year. So you're pretty much guaranteed to win that game in your whole fantasy league. I'm going to go with Derrick Henry. I know all the negatives. There are going to be games where he doesn't do well, and there are going to be games where he gives you almost nothing in the passing game. But at the end of the year, he's going to be the rushing leader again.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. You know how much I love Henry. In fact, I think he may get a little bit more involved in the passing game. I do think maybe he'll be kept a little bit more in check in terms of rushing yards. I don't see he's going that many 200 yards rushing games. But yeah, I love that pick. For me, the next pick is Devonte Adams. So to me, Devonte Adams has shown that he's clearly the fantasy leader on the receiver side. Aaron Rodgers goes to him even when he's drawing special coverage. They find ways for him to get open, and he's just a special talent. And I know it's a half PPR league, but I think he's heads and shoulders above the other wide receivers. So to me, this is the time to take him.
So you're going to alternate, I guess, here to great pick and bad pick. Oh. Great pick with Christian McCaffrey. I didn't like the Alvin Kamara, but I love the Devonte Adams. He was my 5th overall, and I'll admit the guy who was 4th was a little bit of a stretch in my mind. So I think he makes a lot of sense as the 4th overall. I'm going to go ahead and pick someone who I think you're probably not going to like. And I guarantee many of our viewers are not going to like. But if we want to talk upside, and it's all about winning the fantasy league, you want to talk upside, there's nobody with a better upside than Saquon Barkley. I am going to, during the 2021 season, he's only going to be 24 years old. This guy, I know he's been injury prone. He's had 2 years where he's frustrated people. But 3 years ago, over 2,000 yards, 15 TDs. He duly does, again, check all the boxes like Dalvin Cook. 6th player off the board.
You know what? I think that's a good pick. I'm thinking that it's time for him to do well. There's been moments when people have gone from one ACL to the next. I'm a little bit nervous about that from the injury prone, but he's a stud. We actually saw what New York Giants running backs could do. I think that's a great pick, but I like this pick even better. But you know what? I think Coleman's going to go with the same pick, so I'm going to hand it over to him. Coleman, who would you take for the 7th overall?
Hold on a minute. I thought Coleman was like an impartial arbiter here. I'm starting to see. I'm getting double teamed. All right, go for it, Coleman.
I'm going to go with Travis Kelce right here. And I know he's a tight end, but, I mean, he's on the Chiefs. He's got Andy Reid as his head coach. He's got Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. And he was 4th overall in receiving yards this year as a tight end. I mean, he's got so much. You talked about upside. He's got so much upside. I mean, just so many touchdowns for a tight end. I think he's a great pick here.
Michael, your comment?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's who I had on the board.
Okay, all right. He didn't go rogue.
No, he didn't. And let me just take 1 second here and say that there's just such a big drop off after the 2nd and 3rd tight end, and even from Kelce to the 2nd tight end, that I think part of the reason to do this is how it separates you from other fantasy teams in a position that can score as many points as the running back and wide receiver position.
This is a great pick. I mean, I know some people who are arguing for Kelce 3rd overall. I think that is too early, but you guys picked him at 7. That's not too early. That's an excellent pick. And honestly, a pretty safe pick. I can't see a scenario where, you get hurt by that pick. All right, my pick, 8th overall pick, Ezekiel Elliott. Like I said with Saquon Barkley, he's still young. Barkley's 24. He's 26. Should still be in his prime. He's a 2-time rushing champion. And people said, but he was so bad last year. Yeah, he wasn't bad last year when Dak Prescott was healthy. he was catching 6.5 receptions a game when Dak Prescott was healthy. So I'm going to hope that Prescott re-signs with the Cowboys. And he stays healthy. And if so, I think Elliott is due for a real bounce back year.
Yeah, no, actually, that's who I had next on my list. I completely agree with that. Having Dak back makes a huge difference. And so you stole my pick. So next up for me is a guy who actually didn't have a great AFC championship game, unfortunately, but led the league in receptions and receiving yards, I believe. I think he's the number one guy for the Buffalo Bills, and that's Stefon Diggs. I think he will continue to do that. He just gets so many targets. Coleman, anything you want to add to that?
I mean, I just really like Josh Allen back there, and he gives Stefon Diggs a lot of chances. I'm not really sure what happened in that AFC championship game, but Stefon Diggs, he's a great route runner, and he's got great hands. So I totally agree with that pick.
Yeah, I digs it. I think he's only going to get better as he gets more of a rapport with Josh Allen, and Josh Allen will get better. So my number 10 pick, Tyree Hill. You can trust the Kansas City offense, and you can trust Tyreek Hill's role in that. They just work so hard to figure out ways to get him the ball. They will throw deep. They will throw short. They will throw behind the line of scrimmage and get him to run the ball, and they will have him run the ball. Coleman, when you have a talent like that as a high school quarterback, isn't it just so great as a quarterback? You just have to get the ball in his hands.
Yeah, man, I wish I had Tyreek Hill in my offense. He's just, you got to give him the ball as fast as you can, and that's kind of what they've designed the offense to do. So I think it's a great pick.
That's who I had next up. So I got to figure out where I'm going next, and I am going to go with our guy, Deandre Hopkins of the Arizona Cardinals, who's shown that he can move systems and still be a fantastic talent. Yeah, he has to go up against Jalen Ramsey twice a year, but we saw him even produce in those situations. And hey, the Hail Murray showed that DeAndre Hopkins got the best hands in the NFL right now. He's going to get his targets. He's going to produce. Love this guy.
All right. At number 12, the last pick of the first round, I'm going to go, Coleman, with someone who's not much older than you. But this guy has a super bright future. It's running back Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I got to admit, there's one thing I'm a little concerned with. Phillip Rivers is gone, and he loved to check down little dump-off passes to his running back. But as great as Jonathan Taylor was, he didn't even become the main back until week 11. You know what? Shane Mack's going to be a free agent. He is going to be the guy. He had just a huge amount of carries from week 11 on, goal line back, passing game. Jonathan Taylor is my guy. And I actually I think I like where I got him here at the end of the first round.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. That's where I had him as well. He's just going to keep getting better, and he had a great second half of the season.
All right, so that concludes the first round. Coleman, what pick was your favorite given when he went in the first round?
My favorite was Derrick Henry. I mean, like you said, he was the rushing leader this year, and I think fourth pick is a great time to pick him. Maybe even a little earlier if you're feeling it, but I think that was a great time to pick him, Eric.
All right, Michael, kick us off in the second round, given there's a 12-team draft. The 13th player.
So first pick of the second round goes to number 13, Michael Thomas of the Saints, who's typically been up at the top of the board. I know there's a little bit of cloud based on who's going to be the quarterback, but this guy is, up there in terms of talent with even Devonte Adams and obviously the last few receivers that we've picked. And I think he'll find a way to produce this year. And I'm super excited about his 2021 season.
Love the pick. Absolutely love the pick, Michael. I think people have to realize Michael Thomas played the entire year in extreme pain. He's having multiple surgeries in the offseason. I think there's every reason to expect that he's going to come back if not 100%, way healthier than he was last year. He's the consensus number one wide receiver last year. And if he'll be great if Breeze is the quarterback, I think he'll also be great if Jameis Winston's the quarterback. And he'll still be good with Taysom Hill. So I love the pick. You're getting a discount, right? He probably should be going in fifth. And I think you should bump him up even more if either of those two guys are the quarterback, Breeze or Winston. All right, 14th pick, Nick Chubb. First of all, he's the bell cow back, and he's going to get all the goal line carries on a Cleveland offense that looks like he's going to put up some points. In 12 games, he averaged 89 yards and 1 TD. My one wish and why I don't have him higher is I wish he caught more passes, but I really like Nick Chubb here early in the second round.
Yeah, he's a great back. Obviously out for a couple games this year, but I think Cleveland's offense is just going to continue to produce. I like this pick a lot. Eric, for my next pick, I'm going to go with one that's probably a little bit controversial. I probably would have a hard time doing this because of my affiliation as a fan for this team, but I really think Darren Waller is going to be producing ahead of George Kittle this year. I know George Kittle could be back or will be back and can produce similar to some of these guys. But I think the upside on this guy is fantastic. He's basically a wide receiver wearing tight end clothing. And I think there's just such a huge drop after these three top tight ends that if you can get a tight end like Waller or Kittle in the second round, you really got to try and take advantage of that.
Wow, that shocked me, Michael. That not so much you wanted a tight end, but your tight end was Waller over Kittle. This is interesting because I didn't even have Waller on my top 24. But I did have Kittle, and if this is a draft, I might panic and pick Kittle now because all of a sudden, after these three, no one else is very good at tight end. Coleman, what are your thoughts on Waller?
I mean, I really like him. He's a great route runner, and I mean, like my dad said, he's kind of a wide receiver type guy, and he's playing tight end. And with the Raiders, like receiving core right now, he's definitely their go-to guy. So I think it's a good pick.
And I think we've hit the point of the draft where almost everyone now comes with some question marks. Almost free of those question marks is my pick at 16. This guy was pretty impressive last year, even though everything, and when I mean everything went wrong. It's James Robinson. James Robinson's team lost 15 games in a row. He played constantly from behind. But now help is on the way with Trevor Lawrence, who will be the number one draft pick and will go to the Jaguars. But what can't Robinson do? It was just the game script and the environment which held him back. He catches passes. He's a goal line runner. He's the bell cow. And to get that guy that late at the 16th overall, I'm happy with James Robinson.
I think that's a great pick. He was definitely in my top 24. And I actually think there's a possibility he may be the number one producer. I think the only question here is, going with somebody who is just doesn't have the track record some of these other guys. And so, yes, 1 year is, something you can base things on. I think he certainly shows that he is a bell cow. But we'll see what happens with the team as they may change things, including I think they had a coaching position change. Is that not right?
Yeah, they have a lot of things to change down there in Jacksonville.
So that can affect things. Well, that leaves me with my guy Aaron Jones, who I know I know that he didn't have quite the year. He shares a little bit of time with my my alumni Jamal Williams there, and I think that's something that will be continually concerning. But he's great catching the ball. We saw him if you watched the Pro Bowl announcements yesterday, show that he was one of the guys who mossed a player this year. So he's a great pass catcher. As long as he gets his carries, which I think they'll do a little bit better of a job this year getting him those, he's going to produce as a top maybe even 12 pick back.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were watching might go, well, why did you guys wait so long with Aaron Jones? I bumped him down because I just didn't know here in February, will he be back with Green Bay in that same role? And if he goes to another team, what role will he have? Look, if you know that Aaron Jones is the starter, but obviously you will in Green Bay, you'll know that when you draft. I would bump him up about 4 or 5 spots, but that's why I bumped him down. He was going to be my next pick. So awesome pick. So I want Coleman's opinion on this. You went Darren Waller. You showed your bias towards the Raiders. It's time for me to show some bias towards the Seahawks. And I don't think this is too bad at 18 overall, right? 18 overall, wide receiver, DK Metcalf.
Scared me.
DK Metcalf, because he is now the #1 wide receiver on Seattle. What can't this guy do? He can catch short passes. He can catch long passes. He's huge and he's fast. And he's only going to get better. He's obviously has an extremely talented quarterback throwing to him. What was it like going back to pass on a varsity high school team and just having this huge target you knew you could throw to?
It was awesome. I mean, like, he was a guy that I knew if I was in trouble, I could just dump it to him wherever he was. I always wanted to look for him where he was on the field. I mean, I can understand why you picked DK Metcalf here after having that in high school. So,
yeah, 2 words for you: Buda Baker. The rundown that he had of Buda Baker, who's one of the faster guys in the league, I just think makes DK Metcalf not only a special talent because of his speed, but for his willingness to go do that. And so I love this pick. It allows me to go with my next pick, which is another Raider. And Josh Jacobs. I'm surprised he fell this far. I think he's continued to show. I mean, he really still hasn't shown his pass catching ability. Let's remember that he really was a wide receiver at Alabama. And he has the pass catching ability of any of these top running backs, perhaps even better. And he's continued to be the bell cow back for the Raiders. They're just going to keep getting better. I know it's been disappointing to see them continue to not make the playoffs, but I think Josh Jacobs is going to have even better of a year in 2021.
So I'm noticing a trend. I continue to put my faith in younger guys. Now, this next guy's not younger. By the way, that's a fine pick. This guy is not younger, but he has to rely on someone who is extremely young. But I believe in him. Who am I believing in? Justin Herbert. And the player I'm picking is running back Austin Eckler. Now, Austin Eckler only scored 3 touchdowns last year. That is a fluke. He certainly will regress to the mean where he will score more touchdowns. Now, I get it. He's not the goal line back. So if they get the ball on the 1 or the 2 yard line, he's not going to run it in. But the guy is so dynamic and used so much inside the 10, he's just going to find his way into the end zone more. Like I said, I like the Charger and the Herbert offense, putting a lot of points on the board. So Austin Eckler at 20, I think that's a bargain for him.
Yeah, my only caution there is that Herbert's not Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is the ultimate dump the ball to running back quarterback. That's why it was so good for Eckler in the prior years, and that's a good role for Eckler. He just doesn't have the size that some of these other running backs have. And so if I were the Chargers, I wouldn't be consistently giving him the ball at the goal line. So a little bit of a concern there, but I like the pick otherwise. Well, that allows me to rip the 3rd tight end off the board, which is my next pick. Of course, I wouldn't do that if this was my team and I just continued to go. But to me, George Kittle's the next guy to go. And the fact that he has, gonna come back without being beat up at all this year, I think means he's going to get a lot of targets. If Jimmy G's the guy, he needs a guy like Kittle to get the ball to. He's special talent, and tight ends after this are a disaster.
So, yeah, and I may have panicked and probably picked him, given if this is the draft, and picked him early. In fact, if I didn't, I probably would get upset now, because that if those 2 guys are gone, Kittle has to be moved up. So excellent pick. Coleman, I want to ask you a question, because we're at 22, right?
Right.
Coleman, can you imagine? I'm not going to give you this guy's name, but I'm going to describe him. Okay. At 22, can you imagine getting a guy who is by clearly the bell cow? He's the feature back. He's going to get almost all of his carries. He will get all of the goal line carries. He will get heavily involved in the passing game. And I believe he's on an offense that is going to score a lot of points. How good does that sound to you?
It sounds pretty enticing. What are you going to get?
Yeah, well, and then you tell me if you disagree with any of those points. Because I think Joe Burrow is the real deal. And the person that benefits the most is Joe Mixon. The only question mark is, will he stay healthy, because he's been bogged down with injuries. But if he does, look, I wanted to pick him about 5 picks earlier, but he's not going that early in draft. In fact, this may be even a little on the early side. So I was patient, but I'm not going to wait any longer. What do you think, Coleman? Am I nuts?
I mean, I think it's an okay pick here.
Okay.
I mean, Joe Burrow got creamed back there in the pocket. I mean, the offensive line did him no favors. And so Mixon is a great dump-off guy for Burrow, and I think in his comeback year, like you said, he's someone that'll benefit a lot from Joe Burrow back there. So,
how good is Joe, as a quarterback yourself, how good do you think Joe Burrow will be in the next couple of years?
I think he's going to be a stud. I mean, he's great for the NFL. After that season at LSU, I mean, he just looks so great back there. So I think he's good.
Talent.
Yeah, you look at Cincinnati the year before and this year when Burrow was in, completely different, even though that offensive line, like you said, is pretty bad. Michael?
Well, I got to be honest, there's a couple other guys that, as you were talking, came to mind. And they're actually, for me, you got David Montgomery, what he did for the Chicago Bears towards the end of the season. And even Miles Sanders, once we had a real quarterback in the position there, right? Unfortunately, Carson Wentz had a disaster of a season, which was horrible for the Philadelphia Eagles. But once Jalen got in there, I think it started to be more productive for Miles Sanders, both of whom are the bell cow backs for their teams. And so really some good options right here.
My concern,
for me,
wait a minute, this may or may not affect your pick, but my concern about David Montgomery is he really took off when Tariq Cohen got hurt. So will Cohen be injured? Will Cohen, now that he's not injured, eat back into it?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And so I think that Montgomery showed that he can play that role. And sometimes it's nice to have this 2-back system can hurt you when teams adjust based on who's in the backfield. And so that's one of the things that I'd be interesting to see how the Bears play that. I think that the quarterback there makes it to where you got to have a little bit more question mark on the mind of the defense. But for me, I'm torn between 2 wide receivers, one of which would be an Eric pick because of where he is in his youth. And the other one is a consistent first rounder who I just think had an off year this year. And that's why I would go for my last pick of this second round before you get the very last pick with Julio Jones of the Atlanta Falcons. I think he is primed to have a fantastic year this next year. I hope he goes this late because this is where I would pick him if I was going in this draft.
All right. Well, I'm going to completely troll you, and I'll explain to you what I mean by it in a minute. Look, Keenan Allen was in my top 24, but I am going to go with the number 1 running wide receiver on the aforementioned Atlanta Falcons, Calvin Ridley. Coleman, settle this debate. Who is the number 1 wide receiver in 2021 season? Who do you predict will be the number 1 wide receiver on the Atlanta Falcons?
I don't know. I think it's going to be real close just because Julio Jones has been that guy for so long on the Falcons. And Calvin Ridley's kind of newer. I mean, he's been around for a few seasons now. And he's got that speed. But, I mean, Julio's size, it's hard to beat. And he's the guy that they can go one-on-one on the sideline, one-on-one in the end zone. And so if you got that one-on-one matchup, personally, I'd go to Julio Jones every time. But he gets a lot of double teams, so it might end up being Calvin Ridley.
It really was a wide receiver 4 last year 4th best in fantasy totals, averaging 9.5 targets and 92 yards. He was good when Jones played. He was good without Jones. But I will say one thing. We're at the end of the 2nd round on an Atlanta team that can't run the ball. So I think both guys could have really good seasons. So I'm just kidding you. I have no problem with Julio Jones at the end of the 2nd round.
Eric, I think it's amazing that you got guys like Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Chris Godwin still left towards the end of the 1st round, and we haven't picked a single quarterback either. I think this might be the first year where any reasonable draft actually does drop the quarterbacks out of the first 2 rounds, because there's so many that can compete with each other at that highest level and the talent that you have. And this doesn't even include some of the rookies who probably don't go in the first 2 rounds, but really could have an impact coming out, including the Heisman Trophy winner, Devonte Smith, who is, I think, going to be a stud in the NFL this year.
So that'll do it for our top 24 players. Coleman, thank you so much for being a special guest on the show. Michael, a lot of fun doing the show this season with you.
It was great. That was so much fun.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure, if you haven't yet, you've clicked that red subscriber button and continue to watch us as we get closer and closer to the season. We will update these rankings and give you a lot of preseason analysis.
Yeah, and don't forget to drop your comments. We'd love to hear what you thought of our draft. Talk about, your favorite pick from the 1st round, Eric's mistakes in the 2nd round, all that kind of stuff. We'd love it. Or you can pick on Elder Wiley and tell him why he should be back doing some hard work there in Montana.
All right. Until we see you in that preseason content, take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.